Welcome to A More Brilliant Life. We share inspiring stories from people who hit rock bottom, face their challenges, and transform their lives. Learn how you can rise above expectations, discover who you are, and reclaim your future.
And I did not know what I was going to do. It was a week. I had no idea. And that was really scary. Also, people here on the island will say, don't worry about that. Because they're coming to this new place, and after a while, this new place has a different energy and different people, and everything is different. The life will be different, and something will emerge that you've never expected.
Well, welcome Olga Brouwer to A More Brilliant Life podcast. This is the podcast where we highlight people's stories of transition, personal transformation, major pivots in life, major career changes. Really, the goal is to just show people that change is possible. And you know, I think what happens to so many adults is that they get stuck in their heads that once they've chosen a path in their lives, that they have to stick to that path, that there's too much sunken cost in their career and they can't possibly pivot and leave their career. So I'm trying to push back on that belief because what I think happens to adults is that they, you know, when you get kind of stuck in that with blinders on, you get stuck in that lane, and you just kind of turn into a little bit of a zombie for the rest of your life. And then, you know, so many people just regret it toward the end of their lives. Like, why didn't I take that chance? Why didn't I, you know, consider doing a different job? Like, why didn't I just, you know, I had plenty of money or whatever it was. Like, there was just no excuse for not doing what they wanted, for pursuing their dreams. So that's really what we're trying to do, is just highlight people who have done this. And tell their stories and get other people to understand that it's possible. They don't have to live out their lives as a zombie. They can, in fact, change who they are and pivot at any moment in time. So, Olga, you, I know you have found yourself living internationally, just like myself, and I want to hear, you know, your story of transformation. Like, we really just kind of want to paint the picture of the before, the during, and the after. Kind of what were the ingredients that led into wanting to make a major pivot in your life, and how that went for you. So let's go in chronological order. Let's kind of jump way back in time. Let's hear about your old life, kind of what your identity was, and how that transformed for you.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, for having me here and the invitation. I think it's super exciting to be reconnected after quite a few years in the meantime. So originally I'm from the Netherlands, and I was a teacher in the Netherlands and married a dairy farmer. And the 90s. And actually, I was a teacher in Rotterdam first in my career because there were no teaching jobs. And the only jobs you could find was in schools with highly diverse clientele, if you will. So like 95% immigrants and different religions and different backgrounds. And of course, the parents would work in the heavy industries in the Europe's largest port, basically. So that's how I started my professional life. Marrying a dairy farmer meant not staying in Rotterdam, of course. Not a lot of farming happening there. And so I moved to the dairy farm and started a family. Became very involved with agricultural leadership as a young farm woman, and really was actively involved in the dairy operation as well, and chaired young agricultural women's organizations, and learned more about policy. And I learned that the Netherlands, very small country, a sixth of Minnesota, and heavily populated, right? One of the most populated countries in the world, if you don't count Hong Kong or some of those city states. So with that, it means European policy towards agriculture. Oh, I see you have it, Kat. That is fun. Anyway, so yeah. Hi, who was that?
Her name is Partner.
Oh.
We brought her from Minnesota to Costa Rica, and she has adjusted very well. She's actually a Minnesotan farm cat, if you can believe that. And the building here, the condominium, loves her. She's just very friendly, and we let her out, and she wanders around, and every once in a while she comes and say hi.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Well, anyway, back to my story. I learned about the agricultural policy in the EU. And guess what? Being in the Netherlands maybe wasn't the best of places if you were focused on production agriculture, right? If you wanted to process your own milk or start a campground, yeah, that would be fantastic. But all the rest, no. So I said, okay, we all want to grow. We all want to grow our farms. And we can't, obviously. And so we decided to pack up our stuff and move to South Dakota, of all places, right by the Minnesota state line, but South Dakota. So that meant also the end of my teaching career, really. I wasn't really sure if I was going to pick that up again, but I had to really put all my energy into finding out how the dairy operation worked. I used to be working in the office, handling the administration, the HR was a large operation. So yeah, plenty of work there and leadership opportunities, as you can imagine, in our small community, as well as in the dairy industry and agriculture, cooperatives, of course, that we were members of. And so from one thing came another. And there was the South Dakota Agriculture and Rural Leadership Program. So I became a member of, that's not how it goes. You apply, right? And thank goodness I was elected in class 6 of SDARL, as that's called, SDARL, and really loved it. I learned a lot because I had only lived in the U.S. for 4 years or so when I became a member. So I was a pretty fresh immigrant.
I'm curious, Olga, this is a personal development program, and I think it's centered around leadership development of those in the agricultural industry. But at what point in your life did you start to become interested in personal development, or was it just kind of always something that was built into you as a person, or was there a moment where where all of a sudden you're like, where something flipped in your brain where you're like, I want to really focus on developing my skills and developing myself?
Well, that's I like that question. I think it's always been an interest, but when did it really start? That was probably after college, when I was involved with all these farming organizations in the Netherlands, and there were a lot of opportunities there. So that was the first time when it was like a voluntarily, not something that your professor would say you had to do, but yeah, I think it started more at that moment. Yeah, it was super cool. The Rabobank is Rabo is a Dutch bank, and they invited all these young farm women to one spot in the country, and they gave us actually the coolest gift I've ever had, maybe, or one of the coolest, a watch with a 25th hour on it, or 13th hour. And what would you do if you had one more hour in the day? Because, of course, these women are all, like, incredibly busy, right? Anyway, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, cool stuff.
So how old were you when you came to the U.S.?
35.
35, okay. So you spent 35 years, your first 35 years in the Netherlands, living in the Netherlands. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And you opened a dairy farm in South Dakota, or you bought a dairy farm, or you started working, you bought one?
Yeah, bought. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Very cool.
Yeah. Was my then husband.
Okay.
So that reveals what happened. that's the marriage didn't last, and I think and this is what inspires me a lot about you and Kylie is you did this together and all of that. But if it's not that stable and then you make this switch to a different country, well, good luck, right?
Right.
So, regrettably, that was the end. Also, at some point, fast forward, of my farming career, because, there were not enough, it wasn't a good basis to continue working together at the dairy farm. Plus, I had my full-time job in the meantime in Minnesota as the executive director of Minnesota Agriculture and Rural Leadership. So that meant that I had to step away from the dairy farm, even though, that was not easy. That was really, really hard. And I can, whenever I read that people are selling their herd or of the steps that you had to take the decisions, but I really feel the pain.
Yeah.
It's not easy. Yeah.
And that's a part of my story that maybe I haven't shared with you yet, that since I've been, I went through the program Minnesota Agricultural Rural Leadership when you were the director. And I loved that experience. It was an interesting time in my life. It was one of the darkest periods of my life and the program had nothing to do with it, but I was going through a lot. And as many people do, and you find out that it's, there's so many people that go through things, but, at any rate, a few years after that program, the COVID hit, the real estate market exploded as well as the land values. And so that's when I actually went back to my family. At that time, my aunt and uncle were still a part of the corporation. And I said, look, I'm uncomfortable with this plan that we have for the farm transition. And we tried to figure things out, spent 2 years in kind of a conflict mode. And ultimately we landed on, okay, there's no other solution here other than it's time to sell and split up everything. And so that's how my farming story ends. And that's when, basically our Costa Rica journey begins and also our transformation into a new career, into a new calling, and a new path. So all that to say is that, while I didn't have a divorce or any separation with my spouse, we had a family divorce, basically, with extended family taking sides, and everybody, there's members of my family I no longer talk to or communicate with. So there was a very real separation that took place there. Painful and just a lot to, just a burden to carry, and to mentally and emotionally work through. But so all that to say, I feel like I can empathize to a certain extent of what it was like to go through that process. But it's also I really look back on it, and it's kind of like the pressure in the diamond mine, right? Like you put so much pressure, so much stress on the human psyche that at some point it you just kind of come out of it, and I think you look back on the experience and you're like, that experience was a blessing for me, and I can use that experience, and I can learn from it, I can grow from it, I can understand so much more about my own self, about the world, about others, about humans, and so it's really important to take those experiences and frame them inside your mind in the right way, I think. and understand them. But
Yeah.
let's go back. Let's go back to your
Good
story.
from you
That was kind
for...
of it was kind of a long aside. I apologize for my inserting myself in your story, but
I like that actually, Jake.
okay.
It's more
All right.
conversational. I love it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
I don't like my monologue. So
Yeah.
yeah. Ah, I love how you were explaining that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it would feel exactly, but yes, there are, of course, those, the people and family members who take sides. You find out your friends, who your friends are or not.
Right.
And this happened before, right? Moving to the United States, of course, there were people who said, why in the world are you moving? Is it never enough? And so, there was that. And now, of course, much more personal, much more difficult and painful and, emotional for a lot of people. So yeah.
Well, you're an interesting guest because, I mean, you've had several pivots in your life. Obviously that was a major pivot, just going to the U.S. and then the transition away from that. But is there one, or is there a particular moment in your life where you felt the most personal growth happening within you, or the most self-transformation? Do you know, was there one transition in your life that really you think you progressed the most?
Well, that's the most. I think there's growth in every transition. But if you would really focus on maybe the last year and a half, 2 years ago, because then at some point I decided to resign from my role with Marl, with SMSU, basically in Marshall. And at that moment, it was just managing stuff. But then after moving here to the Azores, right in the middle of the Atlantic, first I had to take a deep breath. But in the meantime, I thought, okay, now what, right? I'm too young to retire, so okay. So then I decided to focus on something that helped me the most, and that was coaching. But well, I think I can learn that too, because with all the things I've already done, I think that would work. And if nothing else, I would learn a few skills that would probably help me for the rest of my life. And actually, that I do believe that came true. First of all, because of the coaching training. So coaching training makes you not only learn how to be a good coach for others, but also to reflect on your own body. Yeah. Emotions and this and that. Emotions? What? Does your body sense anything? Body? I have a body? Really? But anyway, so it was really interesting to, Plus, I had with much less distractions, of course. So I would say that was really, really a much more intense moment.
So what were the ingredients that were kind of feeding into this decision to move to where you are today, which is, the island and the Portuguese island, Azores? I don't know if I'm saying it correctly. Is that right? Azores?
We did speak Portuguese, I think. So Azores or Azores is a group of it's an autonomous region of Portugal. So it's not off the coast of Portugal. Okay. It's like a 2.5 hour flight to Portugal. Yeah, we're very isolated, basically, but it is it's so beautiful. It's like Jurassic Park partially, and but really nice. So
how did you find out about it? Or how did you? What drew you there?
Well, later, after everything that, all the personal things, I did get remarried. And so my husband traveled here for work, and he traveled a lot. But anyway, he traveled here too. So he said, wow, this place is unbelievable. You need to see it. So, of course, we traveled here on vacation. From one thing came another. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's the climate like? Is there does it ever get cold?
The coldest would be mid 40s, low 40s where I'm at. I'm not in the most southern islands. There are 9 islands.
This is
Um,
Fahrenheit.
so
Fahrenheit.
yeah, Fahrenheit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Or
Mm-hmm.
in Celsius, it would be 8 degrees Celsius on
Okay.
my island, I would say. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So
And
that's not freezing.
no, but typically it stays pretty warm or not? Or is
No,
it
it's
it's generally
actually super steady and mild.
uh-huh.
And so, since we're in the middle of the ocean, it just cannot suddenly be hot and suddenly be cold. We do not get a lot of thunderstorms or anything like that
Cool.
because we just don't have those extremes very
Well,
much. And the wind can blow like crazy, obviously. So it's
sure.
here in the middle of the ocean. But yeah, so it doesn't get very hot. Warmest in Fahrenheit, it would be the 80s or something
Cool.
on a hot summer day. Yeah,
Very
very
cool.
steady. Same with day and night temperature, and
Very,
very high humidity.
okay.
Yeah,
Very cool. And so how
yeah,
long have you been living on the island? How long have you been there?
2.5 years.
2.5 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're fully adjusted. Uh,
I think the adjusting is something that takes a little longer than two and a half
yeah.
years. My adjustment to
Uh,
the US took longer, even though I had my three little helpers who went to school, and that makes a difference. I think moving the children forces you to get
yeah.
into that rhythm of and get used to what people there, in their
Uh,
new habitat think is normal. Uh,
uh-huh.
Culturally or and language, of course. Because I
Yeah.
spoke English before coming to the US, but it was more from the UK. so,
Mhm.
so yeah. So they definitely taught me more English, and of course I just copied whatever they said. They said, "No, mom, that older people don't say that." That's it.
Mhm.
Things like lit or whatever. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it takes a while, and if I reflect back on moving to yes, that took definitely more than 2.5 years to understand the culture of it. I think that takes the longest.
Mhm.
So upon
And how's the Portuguese coming for you?
muito bem.
Okay. Uh-huh.
No, not muito. So muito bem is very good, but I guess that's not true. So actually, I spoke fairly okay Spanish before coming here, and so what happens now? Portuguese is somewhat similar, but
Mhm.
especially the pronunciation is very different from Spanish. So I speak Portuñol. I speak Portuguese and Spanish.
Okay.
Portuñol. Yeah,
Oh, okay. It's
yeah.
kind of like in Costa Rica here. There's so much Spanglish,
Ah,
like
yeah,
it's a huge mix of Spanish and English. But then
yeah.
there is a fair amount of Portuguese in certain areas of Costa Rica as well. But no,
Yeah.
the girls, we've got two girls that are 10, no, 11 and 13.
Mm.
And we've started them in a bilingual school, and they're learning Spanish. And then, there's this Costa Rican kids that they're at this school in order to learn English. So it's a pretty good combination to have them there. And
I love
but
that.
things are going
Yeah,
well.
great.
They've now been in the school for what is it, about since February. So
Good.
whatever that is, 4, 5, 6 months.
Mm.
Uh, mhm.
Oh, glad to hear it's going well. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Um,
one concern, right? As a parent, like I hope they'll adjust and make friends and
mhm.
yeah.
So yeah, no, I think they are making good friends, and they're adjusting well.
Mm.
Um, but I want to know more about kind of what were the ingredients that went into wanting and needing to make a change in your life, and then just kind of like how the decision process that you were going through in order to decide what's next steps to make.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, happy to talk a little about that. So, decision, it was really difficult, first of all, and it took me some time. So my husband was, his roots were a little more loose, I think, than mine, even though, so he too is an immigrant, but from a very different country than my home country, and in the United States. And he was nearing the end of his tenure at South Dakota State. So for him, it was like, okay, now, the winters are too cold, and what am I going to do? For me, it was more, I'm not a farmer anymore. Like, what am I then, right? That was my identity. And people even called me by my farm name, like Mrs. I was like, what? Anyway, so I had to adjust from that. And then, of course, so I have children who were basically more or less out of the nest. And the youngest was just about to graduate high school. Well, he was done with high school for sure. After we moved, he was already in college. Almost done with college. So with that, it was, okay, so how do we do this? I had my responsibilities as a parent too. So since I had the steady job, it was me who had the health insurance and, all those types of things for the family after I got married even. So this was an interesting thing. Like, okay, so I can't do really much before I have checked my responsibilities, first of all. And I don't want to shake things up more than I already have, because the whole, it was pretty wild. And so then, and my husband was already ready. We had the house where we currently live in as a vacation home. We had bought that after vacations and stuff. And then right before the pandemic. So that was interesting. Couldn't travel here, of course. So he was ready, but I was absolutely not ready in many ways. Not only because of the boxes to check. And at the same time, life is complicated. At the same time, at SMU, we had a leadership change so that people who supported me in my personal challenges and were like, you know what, we get it. Don't worry about it, and we'll give you a hug if you need, and all that good stuff. Those people, they changed to other positions, and so there were a couple of things happening all at once. So I thought, okay, so maybe this is a moment that I have to change, or not. Maybe I have to change my mindset and make this work in a different way, because I loved that job with. Marl, that was a privilege to work with that program and all the stakeholders. And it was incredible. So I'm like, okay, so what to do? Well, so I asked, actually, and along with Marl, who was a professional coach, I asked this coach if she could help me. And that's how we got into this path. And
so with that coach, did you just have like a conversation with her, or did you actually engage her in her coaching services?
Yeah, actual coaching services. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you were working digging with her. Okay. How long were you working with her?
I continued to work with her after moving here for another year or so. But I would say 2.5 years. Worked with this coach. Yeah.
So then, like in that period when you were kind of floating for an identity, like what, you know what I mean? Like how did you come to grab onto the identity that you have today? Or like what, you know what I mean? What were you, were you just kind of seeking for things that were calling to you, or like what was, What was going through your mind at that time?
Mm, no, I know. I don't think I was doing that. But then what, right? So actually, I think what helped me the most was to be more grounded, because I was so invested in my profession and all the things that came with it, and trying to save whatever I could save in the relationships as you between, you're grieving of all the losses. So, yeah, it was very, very difficult. So with that, I think just taking that time to step back from, and I did not know what I was going to do. It was a week. I had no idea. And that was really scary. But yeah, thankfully my husband said, don't worry about it. I've got your back. And yeah, but we'll figure it out. Also, people here on the island who said, don't worry about that, because they're coming to this new place. And after a while, this new place has a different energy and different people and everything is different. Your life will be different, and something will emerge that you've never expected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did it emerge? Like after you arrived at the island, then it took some time for like your new path to kind of get illuminated?
Yeah, about a year and a half.
About a year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I would say, because so this whole coaching training track and all the new colleagues I was making and clients and everything, of course, you learn a lot through that. But ultimately, the one piece that I learned was that, for myself, right, for my own activities, was how I always loved art, and I was a very creative and artful person. But being involved in the dairy farm and family that had its values, that did not align at all with each other. And so I dropped it entirely. I frowned upon it. I felt like, yeah, well, that's, I don't know, wishy-washy stuff or whatever. So I did not do much of it, even though, of course, I still really enjoyed looking at art. But anyway, so
was that something you did as a child? Did you, when like pre 18 years old, were you very into art at that time? Yeah.
And even in college. Yeah.
In college as well.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. But yeah, there was not a whole lot of stability in becoming an artist, and so this obviously played a role in not becoming an artist. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So what was that one of the things that you did to kind of gain some mental clarity, to kind of slow down and take a breath? Like, did you focus on your art for a while, or were there other activities like meditation or things, or, I've heard one of my other guests said that she started taking super long walks, and it was almost became like like a nature type meditation. Or what did you do in order to slow down?
Yeah, for sure, walks. Lots of sleeping. The first 3 months when I was here, I would sleep like 12 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. Not a day, a night.
Yeah.
A lot of sleeping, and yes, walking. We have a dog, a Dalmatian, and so it's a breed that forces you to go out and walk, because she would drive you absolutely nuts if she don't. And the area here is wonderful. There's lots of hiking trails, and yeah. So yeah, lots of walking, meditating, some little bit of yoga and things like that. Healthy cooking helps me. That kind of always very yeah. Okay. I'm really enjoying to cook and bake.
Okay, cooking. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I heard healthy cocaine, but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, you can make of it what you want, I guess.
All right. Healthy cooking.
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 In the kitchen.
Yeah. Okay, so then let's let's move into like what you do now. Like
Yeah.
you host retreats and you're coaching, and yeah, let's talk about kind of
Yeah.
what fills your bucket now.
All the
Mhm.
things. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, first of all, yes, there's the coaching, life and leadership coaching. And I became an International Coaching Federation um, accredited coach. So like tons of hours and lots of mentoring. So I could even be hired by like big corp, whatever stuff. But anyway, so far I've really worked one-on-one online. Um, Another thing I got done just to learn to get back into art is to implement actually a drawing method, an art model that you can use in coaching and therapy um, to draw out even more and create new pathways in your brain. So there's new ways of thinking and looking at the world and looking at your life. So I do that with clients, but also myself.
What is that called?
It's called Neurographica. And actually,
Neurographica.
since we have a screen, I'd be happy to show you.
Sure. Yeah.
Something in the back, but also like this, for instance.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
And so that's done with what medium?
It's all media, all things, materials that everyone typically has at home. So it's Sharpies and fine liners, pencil, color pencil, things like that. And then this
very cool.
particular one is a timeline where you work, towards a goal that you have, and all the different resources and the things from your past, things like that. Yeah, it's super cool.
Super cool.
Yeah.
And so how long do you work on that? Like how long does it take to draw something like that?
This one, probably about 3 hours.
Okay.
2.5.
And you just do it all in one sitting? Pretty much?
It's sometimes. Well, this one was a little bigger. It's like double the other size or something, this one. So then actually it's fine to at some point say, you know what, life goes on, I need to cook again. So, or walk the dog or whatever. And then you can, of course, embellish it and make it nice later. But the framework, you do that in one sitting. And then later you can, make it more fun if you like. Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah.
And have you hosted retreats?
So it's interesting that we're talking about that now because so I had planned my first retreat this week, and here we are. I'm not at the retreat. I'm talking to you. So actually, when I planned this back in January, I launched it. I had done the planning before that, but I thought, that's a little short notice for especially my American clients. And so I did not have enough registrations to pull it off this time, but I have a second retreat coming up in September, second week of September, 5 days here on the island. Small island, so it's super grounding and calm and quiet. So lots of hiking. So I'm doing that. But there's also a few other activities that we do. So there are a lot of old ruins on the island. Buildings that have been abandoned. Actually, most of the Azorian people live in the United States because of economic reasons. Back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, they left the islands. And for that reason, there are a lot of old buildings sitting empty. So we've started to, with lots of help, we started to do some remodel and TLC and bring it back to life. And we work with a platform called Workaway, volunteers, travelers from around the world, who we then host. They come and help us. So I have my hands full with that too. Yeah.
Cool. So it's almost like a Habitat for Humanity type thing, where, or like an AmeriCorps. Like how long are the volunteers actually there working on the?
Yeah.
What is it? Is it a week or two commitment?
2 weeks to a month, typically.
2 weeks to a month? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And then I had the plan of a bed and breakfast one thing we noticed when we moved here is, well, the bit of privacy is quite nice too. And I wasn't used to that, especially not in my dairy life, because I always had this interns staying with our family. I mean, some of these, they were only a few years younger than me, right? When I was a young farmer. And so I had no privacy whatsoever. But now it's like, okay, the bit of privacy is kind of nice. So how do you handle that if your guest room is also a bed and breakfast? So that, well, maybe we need to rethink this. But I do have some plans. I'm hopeful next year so I can open just as well and more festival on the island.
Cool.
Yeah.
Does the island attract a lot of tourism?
Not really. It's not like a prime tourism location because of the remote location.
Sure.
So for that reason, it's a little slower. There are tourists, of course, but no, not very many. And,
Is there a high cost of living there? Is it expensive? No. Okay.
No.
How about like what kinds of things did you have to give up? Like, are there lots of things that you miss about, that you had access to in the States or the Netherlands or something that you don't have on the island?
Yeah, but if it comes to things, I always think that the things that what we miss most is the people, right? It's the same when I moved to Minnesota, South Dakota first. I missed the people the most, of course, and friends and family, and it's the same now. Thank goodness there's internet, but it's not the same as being together and giving each other a hug, obviously. So that's the number one thing. We've had some guests from both sides of the ocean come and visit us, and of course we travel too. So are there things that we bring that we miss? Yeah, actually, I think just so in the United States, there is such an abundance in the stores. It's hard to complain that you don't have access to something from your home country, right? Now here it's the opposite. Plus we're on a small island, and yes, there are stores, but there's no consistency in the supply. Yes, you can always get milk, flour, sugar, and potatoes, onions, all the rest. Oh, and pepper spread. So there's like tomato sauce, and peppers, like red pepper sauce. Really good stuff, by the way. So there are things I miss. You know what I missed? I was just thinking this week, and then I tried to make it myself, right? Cook it. There is this spinach artichoke dip with jalapeno peppers. And of course, with my busy life, I would buy it in Marshall at a large chain store from Arkansas. Anyway, so it's especially since I was too busy to always cook decent meals, I would just get that in little pita bread and dip and eat that. But so this week I made something that was supposed to taste like that.
So as you think back on your transition to the island, do you have any regrets? Do you have anything that you would have done differently? Are you happy with? Are you glad you had made the change that you did, or what are the things that you look back on or you wish you'd have done differently?
Well, first of all, yes, I'm happy and I feel rejuvenated. First of all, and thanks. This was the power of having the same coach who could completely follow me and partner with me through, the before and after, and said, "Wow, you're a whole new person. You're rejuvenated and you're soaring and doing all these things." So that's great to get that feedback too. Do I have regrets? I think the regrets I have. Well, first of all, I really made it a point to quit meals food. So I knew a long time before I resigned that I would do this, and I already told the person I reported to, who I was like Thomas in my role, essentially. But so I created time for everyone to come up with a new plan for not only hiring my replacement, but also having the right ways of saying thank you, or meeting with people, or doing those things. I'm glad I did that. What I regret. So one thing I learned, the lessons and the growth, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So one thing I learned is how and I've been raised this way. I am a rule follower and I will comply, even if it doesn't feel right at all. But if my boss tells me this is how you do it, I might cringe, but I would not really push back. I would maybe ask a little, are you sure this or that would work? But yeah, and that I regret, because that I should have pushed back a little bit here and there, because honestly, that I don't think is fair to him or anyone else, because now he didn't know that he probably knew, but not really. And it's like, okay, this, even on my very last morning, I remember calling it was not the previous class. I had someone serving on my board, and I called him. I said, I promised you X, Y, and Z. However, leadership here at the university says maybe don't do that. And it wasn't a big argument. It was just, if I had pushed back, it was probably all fine anyway. So that is the thing. Why would I not push back, right? And I think that's one thing that is okay to do. You don't have to put up a fight or anything, but just say, well, you know what? I don't think I agree with this, or I don't agree with it, and be a little more firm on that instead of me. And I loved how you were talking about the Enneagram somewhere. Anyway, I'm like, oh yeah, that's so fun when you go to that. I'm like, oh yeah, that's exactly. I can see the coin on both sides, but it doesn't mean you don't have your own identity or your own opinion. Yeah.
So was there a moment where kind of a light bulb went off in your brain, or like, how did you come to this realization that maybe I don't have to follow every rule by the book? Like, did that kind of reveal itself over time?
Yeah, well, I think there were different moments in it. So this is about, at least for my development, and maybe that's regrettable, I don't know, but it takes me a long time sometimes to finally have that light bulb slowly go on. Like, oh, I've been doing this for how many years? Yeah. I've also shown this to my children as a parent, doing my very, very best to show how to lead life, and you just do as you say, or as you've been told. And it's like, okay, I'm not saying you have to be a rebel, but speaking your truth, that was the thing. And so my coach helped me with it, but even now there are moments. I actually read a book about anger, which is interesting because I surely did not consider myself an angry person at all, but I was curious about learning about it. Dealing with passive aggression, things like that. And so, that's another thing. It would really help to just speak my truth instead of.
Right. Yeah. Instead of letting it build up inside. Yeah. No. So, do you have a personal mantra that you try and live your life by?
Well, personal, I had to, because I expected you to ask that. So actually, one thing that I do with my clients
Mm-hmm.
is we do a lot of discovery before we start our first coaching session and find out what are your core values, what are your
Right.
natural gifts and talents, what is your life purpose, how do you see your future self in 5 years, things like that. And then you combine all those things. And so with that, I think if I would look at that core, boil it all the way down, then I think the mantra should be I rise with peace, I lead
Mm-hmm.
with trust, grow through challenge, create with purpose, and lift others as I soar.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very well rounded. And no, I love it. That's amazing. Cool. And so you actually prepared that for this podcast then?
Yeah, I had to come up with something. I have all these, because for my website, I have shift and soar because the soaring piece is what happened to me. Like, oh my goodness, I had to break free from a lot of stuff that, yeah, just didn't serve me from, yeah, many years
Yeah.
of, yeah, keeping it all down or frowning on something like holding the pencil. It was a big thing. Like, no, you can draw. It is okay. But we're
Yeah, that's what I've found too. Is there's so many things that you have to let go of, and actually, I swear personal development is just as much about elimination as it is about addition.
oh, for sure. Yeah.
And you really, I mean, just habit creation in general. Like a big part of habit creation is getting rid of habits that aren't serving you, for sure. But
Yep.
my cat is rubbing up against my power cord right now on my laptop. So,
Well, good thing I don't have my dog jumping here through the street. He loves to chase cats. Yeah.
well, this is this is the first time that she's been bothering me during a podcast, but that's all right.
Sure. Yeah. No. So yeah, there's just a lot about it. As yeah, after you asked, invited me to do this, oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start. But and I love how you're focused on health. And I thought, well, I can probably learn a few things from you.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, it helps that we're here, and I have all these walks with the dog. And the healthy food. I actually, when I was still with Marl, I did some fasting with food. It just changes your relationship with food after doing things like that, and
right.
So that really helps.
I think that's one of the lessons that Kylie and I have learned is that you really learn a lot from extremes. So, like, for example, like extreme unhealth, like. Or being extremely unhealthy, like a lot of Midwesterners kind of live their life that way, just kind of letting that part of their lives just go and not focus on it at all. And so, over enough time, like at some point you hit that wall where you're like, I can't do this anymore. I cannot live my life this way anymore. And like, and then when you start to kind of crawl away from that and develop different healthier habits, and you get into the extreme side of things, which is like, like let's experiment with fasting. Let's experiment with working out every day. Let's experiment with drinking, a gallon of water a day. And then you get these. That's where I think the lessons are so powerful, is when you go through the extremes, and then you can kind of come back into the moderate space at any point. But but extreme health is something of a drug in and of itself. Like, it just feels so amazing to to get 8 hours of sleep, to eat the proper macronutrients and the proper caloric intake in a day, and to learn and those, extreme health is not, it's not overly complicated. It's difficult to do, or for some people, but by and large, most people know what they should be doing. Like, deep down, it's all there. It's just a matter of actually doing it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That was a part of our journey, is just playing with the extremes and gathering the data points from there and learning.
Mm.
But so, what's in your future, Olga? What's next for you? What are your hopes?
Mhm.
What are your hopes for the future?
Hmm. My hopes for the future. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I hope I can continue to help
Mm-hmm.
others as I grow
Mm-hmm.
myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very, very rewarding to see that happening, and humbling to get the trust from a client when they share what's on their mind, what they want to accomplish, and be the partner on that journey. So it's, yeah, that's for
Mm-hmm.
sure. What's next? It's an interesting question. Some people, of course, ask, like, how about writing a book? Or
Mm-hmm.
some of my colleagues from Minnesota suggested that too. I don't know. Well, I'll
Mm-hmm.
let you know when I have more clarity about that.
Mm-hmm.
But right now,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot about drawing things, um, and getting out of them and learning. I actually even made a whole book list to say, I listened to your podcast recording and I thought, oh, if you're going to ask me what book reading tip, but I'm like, okay, you have another hour.
Yeah. No,
So,
let's hear it. Did
let's
you?
hear it.
Yeah,
And
let's
there's the
hear
drawings.
the.
Oh no, not this
Uh
one. This stuck in out again.
huh.
Anyway, this drawing I think is very inspiring. This is called the mural
Cool.
lotus, and it's about, so the center is the lotus seed, which grows in the mud, and then it grows and grows, and then it gets. So the meaning is that you get to the new life, basically. Which
Is
a
there a
beautiful
template
flower.
that is there a template that you're working off of when you're making that drawing, or is it just all in your own head as it comes out?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
there's
cool.
models, right? So it's a certain
Uh-huh.
model, so you could, yeah, shape it however you want.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, very cool. Very
yeah.
cool. Well, thank you so much, Olga. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
I don't know. I have the book list if you're interested, but I could share it
Sure.
later too, and so it's
No, let's hear it.
not as
What were
terrible.
some of the most powerful books that you've run across?
So actually, my husband told me this, since he had read tons of leadership books himself, and he said,
Uh-huh.
you need, or South Savannah, you need to read, this was very early on, then kind of the dark times.
Mm-hmm.
Wayne Dyer's Pulling Your Own Strings.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. I just read Wayne Dyer's The Power of Intention. Actually, that was only a couple 2-3 months ago. Loved it. Loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is Wayne Dyer. Say the title again. Sorry, I missed it.
Pulling Your Own Strings.
Pulling Your Own Strings. Awesome.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
had to learn how to do that. And then I read The Longevity Diet by Dr. Longo, Walter Longo, and that's more Mediterranean diet. And then every now and then try a few days of this fasting thing, but you can still eat a little bit. You get
Uh-huh.
ketosis, basically.
Yeah.
In the dairy industry, very common thing. I'm like, oh, I
Yeah.
smell like a, I'm like
Uh-huh.
a cow with milk fever.
But
Anyway,
you are actually getting into ketosis. Is that what you said?
with this one, yes, but it's only a few days, and then the last day, yeah. So you need to
Okay.
take some extra glycerol or something to make sure
Okay.
you're still doing okay. Malcolm Gladwell talking to strangers, I think, especially in this day and age with the polarization.
Uh-huh.
Brene Brown, I don't care what title.
Uh-huh.
David Livermore is a professor from Michigan, and he wrote books about cultural intelligence, so dealing with cultural intelligence for people like us, I think, when they're moving to other countries or working. In my case, I worked with a very diverse group of people at the dairy farm as well. Just understanding that, okay, it's not this black and white. Okay. So you learn a lot about your own culture too that way.
Sure.
The Coaching Habit by Michael Stander. He's a famous coach, life and leadership coach and executive coach. And he does not say become a coach, but he said, maybe when you're managing or when you're leading or whatever you're doing, use more of those types of approaches. Yeah. Then one book that really made a difference was Leap by Tess Vigland.
Okay.
And that's what I did too, in a way, right? Professionally. I wasn't sure what was next, but let's just jump in. And then there's a whole bunch more. Bessel van der Kolk is a doctor, originally Dutch, but he's a Harvard professor. The Body Keeps the Score. This could be of your interest. And then The Anger Trap by Les Carter and Frank. Anyways, I can't wait.
Is that one about? Yeah, is that about conflict?
It's no, it's not about conflict per se. It's more about emotion, the emotion of anger. And actually, when I was reading it, I thought, my goodness, they should have this in every sixth grade or somewhere in middle school, because anger is a very common emotion that we all have. And the only way I was taught to deal with it is shut up, right? Suck it up. And so that did not serve me well. And actually, until recently, I did not even think I even had emotions of anger, except, the rare occasions or something. But yeah. But of course, I'm human, and I have that too. So yeah. Yeah. So those were some things I'm just super glad that I can share on episode.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna look some of those up for sure.
Yeah.
I especially the Leap one. I feel like that one is very applicable to this podcast and getting that message out of taking the leap. But yeah. All right. Well, where can people find you, Olga?
Well, they can come to our little island, of course, but it might be easier to go to my website, Olga Brouwer. That is OUW, that type of Brouwer.
But so that's OLGABROUWER .com.
.com. Yeah, I have the website, and it is about coaching services and different things. Of course, there's LinkedIn and maybe Instagram and Facebook and others things like that.
But is LinkedIn, that's the one that you're probably most active on? Or which platform are you the most active on?
All three, really. Yeah, equally, I would say. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow, very cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Olga, for joining the podcast and sharing your story with us. And I wish you the best as you continue transitioning into the future.
Thank you so much, Dave. Yeah, and likewise, wishing you all the best too.
Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you got some value out of hearing Olga Brouwer's story. If you want to find out more about us and our mission, check out our website at brilliantlifejourney.com.